Don't let the upcoming time change ruin your sleep. Fall is definitely here. Cooler temperatures, pumpkin spice, everything, everywhere, and Halloween is just days away. But don't let the fall time change sneak up on you. This coming Sunday, November 2nd, the clocks will fall back and it will start getting darker much earlier. This is the time change that all parents dread. It can be a tough adjustment for everyone, but especially for kids because we basically get an extra hour shoved into our day, and kids can really struggle to adjust because kids' bodies are sensitive, and absorbing that extra hour can really throw off the schedules of even the best sleepers. So let me teach you a simple step-by-step method to survive the time change with everyone's sleep intact. Now, the best thing that you can do to survive the time change is to make sure that your child has great sleep habits all year long. Kids who are good sleepers can actually be more flexible with their sleep, and they can handle sleep disruptions much more easily, like skipping a nap or staying up late or handling the seasonal time change. And when I say great sleep habits, I mean kids should be able to fall asleep easily and sleep for 10 to 12 hours through the night without waking up. So if you need help figuring out how to make that your reality, you should really join me in my next free toddler sleep masterclass. It is free, but you have to save your spot. And you can do that at toddlersleepmasterclass.com. And I'll put a link in the show notes too. But don't worry, even if you don't have a perfect sleeper just yet, you can still get through the time change by planning ahead and using my gradual adjustment strategy. So like I said, when daylight savings time ends on Sunday, we basically get an extra hour shoved into our day. So what we're going to do is we're going to gradually adjust your child's internal clock in the days leading up to the time change so that extra hour doesn't feel so sudden. Think about it this way. If your child normally goes to bed at, let's say, 7 p.m., after the time changes, 7 p.m. on Sunday is the same as 8 p.m. was on Saturday just the day before. So if you do nothing and you simply use the clock and you just put your kid to bed at 7 p.m. on Sunday night, it's the same as putting them to bed an hour later than normal. Now, some people do this and they just kind of push through. But if you've ever tried to put your kid to bed an hour later than normal, you've probably seen that really doesn't go very well. They're usually like falling asleep through dinner and then not tired when it's actually time to go to bed. So to prevent this, what you can do is you gradually start moving your child's bedtime later towards 8 p.m. in the days leading up to the time change. This way, that extra hour isn't shoved into their day all at once. Now, this gradual adjustment strategy that I'm going to teach you today is going to apply to both nap time and bedtime. And I've got two different variations of this strategy for you. One for kids who are younger, like under 3 years old, and one for kids who are a little older, over 3 years old. And if you're anything like me, this whole time change kind of makes my head spin, and I think it's sometimes easier to see this visually. So I do have a free download for you if you would like a kind of visual guide of how to do this process. And you can find that at awesomelittlesleepers.com/fallback, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes too. Okay, the first variation of the strategy I'm going to walk you through is for younger kids. I say like kids under 3 years old. Or if your kid has really sensitive sleep needs, like they really thrive on having a certain bedtime, then use this strategy. This is kind of the most gradual. You're going to actually start this process on the Wednesday before the time changes. So on Wednesday, let's say your normal bedtime is 7 p.m. You're going to move bedtime 15 minutes later. So that's going to be 7:15. Then on Thursday, you're going to move it 15 minutes later. So now bedtime is 7:30. Friday, you guessed it, 15 minutes later, now your bedtime is 7:45. And then Saturday, you're going to move it another 15 minutes so that bedtime is 8 p.m. on Saturday night. Now, once Sunday hits, you're going to go back to using the clock and you're going to use the normal 7 p.m. bedtime on that Sunday night after the time changes. Because remember, 7 p.m. on Sunday is the same as 8 p.m. was on Saturday. Now, because you've spent the last few days moving your child's bedtime gradually towards 8 p.m., then once the time changes on Sunday, your kiddo should be able to go back to their normal bedtime and not get too overtired. All right, now it's time for the second variation of the strategy. This is great for bigger kids, like kids who are over 3, or kids who are already pretty good sleepers, and they may be able to handle some bigger jumps in time, or maybe you've just waited to get started. You can start here. So you can start on the Friday before the time change and adjust sleep times, nap times, and bedtimes by 30 minutes. Let's say 7 p.m. is your bedtime. Then on Friday, you would move that to 7:30. And then on Saturday, you would move that to 8 p.m. And then again, on Sunday, you go back to using the clock because now when it is 7 p.m., after the time has changed, that's going to feel like 8 p.m. did on Saturday. So like I said, this whole time change thing can really just feel kind of confusing and chaotic. So if you're more of a visual person, then go ahead and download my free visual guide at awesomelittlesleepers.com/fallback. And also remember that it's going to be much lighter in the morning for the next few weeks also after the time changes. So make sure you keep those blackout curtains up. The fall time change and like the early dark evenings feels weird to all of us in the beginning, even the best sleepers. It just takes a little bit of time to adjust. So once the time does change, just stick with the clock for nap times and bedtimes. And it may take your child a few days for their circadian rhythms to get on track, but they'll get there. If you want even more great sleep tips, check out this video.